Rise and Grind Podcast, episode 12. Here we go. We have my good friend, mentor, former business partner, former boss as well, Courtney Atkinson, on the pod today. And when I first rolled out the Rise and Grind pod, Courtney was on the short list of my guests. And I want to share with you guys a quick story and hopefully shed some light on why Courtney is such an important mentor and figure and friend in my life. I got my real estate license in 2019. At the time, I was working for a corporation here in Medicine Hat, and my boss, he's a big hitter. He was at the helm of a massive corporation, and I was right there, basically a fly on the wall with everything. Corporate 9-to-5 job. Like, if you think of what a corporate 9-to-5 job looks like that's what I had. And it's funny, in corporate 9-to-5, you should have lunch off, but you don't. You're kind of expected to show up early and stay late if you need to, and you're kind of expected to work weekends if you need to travel, and don't ask for that time back kind of thing. And it held a really good space in my life for me to have that role and to work there. I started managing some real estate assets, helping with some leasing of my boss at that time. He had a bunch of real estate assets around the US and Western Canada and here in Medicine Hat as well. And so I kind of naturally fit into that realm and decided to get my license in 2019, just thinking it would give me some more exposure, some more education, and just be in the know of more things. And that's when I met Courtney, was in 2019, when I joined the Atkinson team. Obviously, Courtney is the owner, and his wife is the owner of the Atkinson team. And I didn't really have an inclination of I'm going to sling a bunch of houses on the side. I wanted to do it a little bit just to know the process and maybe make a little extra coin. But what I didn't know is what that was going to turn into. And in 2019, just doing real estate transactions on the side, I made more money doing that than I did at my 9-to-5. But I was so ingrained and entrenched in my corporate job, and I felt a sense of purpose there, and I was super loyal, maybe to a fault actually, to my boss at that 9-to-5 job. And when we went through COVID, my boss relied on me a lot. He's older, and we needed to function all these companies still. And technology, as everyone knows, through COVID kind of forced us into this online realm. And so I was needed. There's no way. I knew if I had quit right in 2020, my boss would have been screwed. So I held on to 2020 into 2021. And by this time, the transaction business of real estate was ramping up. And Courtney was right along there with me for that whole ride. And I remember very vividly, my boss at the 9-to-5 job had a significant board meeting. He was on the board of one of the largest communication companies in Canada. There's only a few of them, so I'm sure you could guess. And he had this board meeting, and so I got into the office early. I knew I had showings through the lunch hour, and I knew that this board meeting kind of started right at noon. And I would have had to leave, I figured about 11:45, rip over to these showings. I made it so easy for my boss. I was like, hey, Mr. Boss, you just need to click this link to get on this Zoom. That's all you need to do. Just click this link. Here's your separate iPad. You can't fuck this up. It's literally impossible. So sure enough, I leave for my showing at 11:45. I'm literally going to try to plan and crush out these 3 showings during my lunch hour, knowing that, crossing my fingers, nothing bad happens on this Zoom. Because if something bad happens with my, he calls me and he's like, why isn't this link working? Why did I get disconnected? I was rolling the dice. Sure as shit, at about 12:10, I get 6 phone calls. Where are you, Ryan? Why aren't you at the office? Get your ass back. It was, at the time I laugh at it, but I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. I literally had to tell my buyers, listen guys, there's an emergency. I'm so sorry, we have to cancel these showings. I rushed back, probably made a time speed record getting from Ross Glen to downtown Medicine Hat. Get in there, get him back on the Zoom. He's furious. And I literally just left. I had to go for a drive. And luckily my buyers didn't fire me, but I went for a drive and I called Courtney and I'm like, I don't even know who to call right now. I'm so flustered. I'm not happy at where I'm at financially, personally in my life. What do I got to do? And it's conversations like that where everyone knows who they should call. There's probably 1 or 2 people in your life. And if those 1 or 2 people aren't situated well and know you at heart and the purest form of you, they're going to guide you in a wrong direction. They're going to think of, hey, what's the safest route for Ryan? hey, what is, no, like he has a really good job. What should I say here just to make him feel comfortable? And I've shared this story before with other people. Courtney grabbed me by the scuff of the neck. Obviously not. We were on the phone call. And he took me and threw me off the edge of the cliff. He told me to quit my job immediately. He basically told me that I was leaving way too much on the table and that I was better served not having the golden handcuffs around me. And that was one of the most significant moments in my life, because I went back to the office and gave my notice that afternoon. And my life has been forever changed from that point forward. Grateful for that 9 to 5, learned so much there, but also grateful that Courtney was there and continues to be there to guide me when I need it. Furthermore, just to paint the picture of this interview a little bit more, Courtney, myself, and his wife, Melanie, we started a real estate coaching company about 3.5 years ago called Real Estate Growth Solutions, totally separate from transaction business. And it was a fun ride. It was very interesting being in business with other people. If those of you that have been in business partnerships with other people, you probably know what I mean. It's always different behind the curtains. It always is. And earlier this year, I exited from that company, and I'm grateful for that time, and I'm grateful for the grace that Courtney and his wife Melanie showed me through that process. Those are super uncomfortable conversations. Those are tough, difficult conversations. Big boy pants have to be on, because you're essentially vouching for yourself, and you don't want things to go sideways because there's a relationship there, but business is business. And furthermore, I did leave the Atkinson team about 3.5 months ago as well. And so there's a lot of chatter in the community like, oh, something happened between Courtney and Ryan. I wonder what happened. I wonder what went south. Well, I would encourage you just to listen to this interview. Courtney and I are as solid as can be. I consider him what's called a 3 a.m. friend, where if I'm up at 3 a.m., can't sleep, and I call him, he's going to answer, and vice versa. Those are the friends you want in your corner, and those are the friends that they're few and far between, and I'm super grateful for Courtney's friendship. In this interview, we get into a ton of stuff. We tried to keep it as generic as possible, meaning didn't get into real estate too much. More of, hey, if you're a listener to this and you're not in real estate, we want to make sure that there's some nuggets of gold in there for you that you can apply to your own life and live a bigger and better life. Because that's what Courtney's about, whether it's helping agents, helping team leaders, whatever he is involved in, he's helping people live a bigger and better life. And I certainly have lived a bigger and better life because of him. So without further ado, I know that's a long intro, but that picture needed to be painted for you guys. Courtney Atkinson, hope you enjoy, hope you learned something. Rise and grind. Here we are, another episode of the Rise and Grind podcast, and I am so pumped for this one. We have one of my best friends in the world and a mentor of mine, ex-business partner, Courtney Atkinson, joining us today. Courtney, thanks so much for your time. I know your calendar's jacked. So how's your year been, man? Bring the listener up to speed with where you've been, what you've been doing.
I feel like if I tell the truth here, people are going to think it's such a chaotic, disorganized life, man. But that is part of the objective of your podcast. It's to shine some true light on real business lives, right? Yeah. The Rise and Grind podcast. Bro, my year's been amazing, and it's been interesting, and it's been challenging. It's been hard. And it's been different than I expected. But as I said to Mel, my wife, the other night, Mel's from Medicine Hat, as you know, I haven't regretted a minute of it, man. Like all these challenges, all the learnings, all the stuff that we've been through as a couple and as a business have been incredible. So that's a real high-level, vague answer. I'm happy to go into the weeds if you'd like.
Well, let's rewind the clock. And I don't know, you probably don't remember this, Court, but I had to go out to New Brunswick a couple years ago for a golf tournament, and I was asking you about what it's like there, because you're from there, you're from Chittman, yeah. And you said something that has kind of stuck with me. You said, yeah, growing up there, you get judged for wanting better. You said something like that to me. Can you start there, and how did growing up in Chittman mold you positively, and then maybe how you had to get out of there?
That's such a great place to start, man. And I think this story resonates with so many of us because it ties into limiting beliefs and where they come from. And that's really what the story is about. So I'm from a small town. I come from a family of great privilege as it relates to small towns. My parents are both teachers, which meant we were, upper middle class and everybody knew us. And, we never really wanted for anything that we knew of. But the challenge with being from a small town is that there weren't many things to know of. And what you did see in terms of wealth or accomplishment just seemed to be really foreign. And there was almost like there was this barrier against it, like that level of accomplishment shouldn't be considered. It shouldn't be talked about. It's certainly not for us. We don't know those people. That's just, another world, another life. And the first time that I remember kind of seeing this was when we traveled. I remember driving from Chipman in what would have been like a 1980 something Ford Escort, two-door with me, my dad, my stepmom, and her mom. And I remember driving down the coast from New Brunswick to Florida and just seeing different levels of wealth that I had never seen. I was a pretty young kid at that time, and I remember seeing like my first Ferrari, and I remember seeing like my first mansion, and I remember seeing like what just looked like normal people living these really big lives. And that was my first exposure to it, but it wasn't like anybody was talking about how to accomplish these things or what we might do. Successful people in my community owned trucking companies, or they owned equipment that worked in the woods or things like that. And the concept that a person could make a really big life, just hadn't even really occurred to me until those years. And then, sequence of events as life unfolds, my mom ended up moving to Fredericton, which is only about an hour away. But that was, as you can imagine, a city of 65,000 instead of 2,500. Just different levels, right? And as you know, Ryan, like the more you travel, and you've played a load of golf and you know a lot of people, like the more you travel, the more you engage, the more people you meet, the more you realize that there's potential out there to accomplish big things. And then the second thing that you notice, or at least the second thing that I've noticed, is that there's a lot of idiots that have done really, really well. And right? And like I've just always thought to myself, like since I noticed that, and it's been a long time, I'm like, oh man, like if that idiot can do it, surely the shit I can. Like I just need to figure out what the thing is that I can do idiotically and do really well at with my skill set and my personality and the place that I live and the things that I like to do. And that's a very condensed version of a long path, but I think for all of us, if we can just get our mind on the idea that things are possible, and then meet some people that have done it, then it opens up a whole world of possibility for us to say, hey, do you know what? Maybe that's not the exact thing that I'm going to do successfully, but I can do things in some sort of big way successfully, like you've done or like I've done or so many others have done, right?
It certainly, like exposure to that certainly cracks open the lid to be like I can do this, or there is an option there. But I think in some community, I felt this growing up too, sometimes a community kind of gets your surface, kind of what is deemed to be acceptable or accomplished personnel, kind of ceilings you until you get out and travel a little bit and see other levels of that, right?
Yeah.
So how did you end up in Lethbridge? Tell me the kind of the cliff notes of that journey from out east to Lethbridge, where you now reside.
Super happenstance. So my first wife and I were both in grad school. I had just started my MBA at the University of New Brunswick in Fredericton. She had just started her PhD in kinesiology, and her thesis supervisor had said to her, hey, I've just accepted a job as the new dean of kinesiology at the University of Saskatchewan, and you should come out and finish your PhD with me, and I'll grant you a postdoctoral fellowship, which is a pretty prestigious thing. And so we talked about it, and the decision was made that she would go to Saskatchewan and I would stay back in Fredericton, finish my MBA, and keep doing what I was doing there. And, we were married at this point, but we would kind of eventually find our way together. I had been selling cars at that time, and a guy by the name of Dave Emerson, who owned the Ford dealership that I worked at, I was telling him this at a Christmas party, and he just dead-eyed me, and he said, you don't leave your wife. And so I moved to Saskatoon, and I transferred my MBA to the U of S, finished it there. She finished her PhD and postdoc, and then she had two job offers. One was at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, the murder capital of America, and the next one was at the University of Lethbridge, and they offered her on the spot in Lethbridge. The money was good. I didn't know what I was going to do. So Jen accepted a job in Lethbridge, and within 2 weeks, I'd lined up work as the coordinator of documents, convocation, and user support at the same university, the University of Lethbridge. And so I started my career. Yeah, right. So ridiculous. It's basically like the shit that nobody else wants to do, right? But anyway, I got that job and was woefully underqualified for it, but gave me some insight into what it's like being a lifelong employee. Realistically, Ryan, I don't think at that stage I had yet understood how many people just like cloak up for the 30-year stretch of a career that they find unfulfilling, surrounded by people that they don't like and that don't like them, and all for the pension and the golden handcuffs. And I played that game for 6 years and had cause to ask myself what was next. And yeah, turned out that it was real estate. That's a whole story unto itself, but just got lucky. I mean, what I tell people, Ryan, is that I didn't dream of selling real estate. I didn't dream of homes. I wasn't like the guy that loved HGTV so much or would always go to open houses on the weekend. I was literally like, I want to make as much money as fast as possible with the lowest barriers to entry quickly and with, nearly unlimited upside. And I want to do it fast because I want out of here. What's that going to look like? It's going to look like insurance, financial services. It's going to look like mortgage brokering. It's going to look like real estate. I interviewed some people. The realtors seemed the happiest. I thought it was a space I could compete in. I got my real estate license, 15, 16, 17 years later, here we are.
It's interesting, like I jotted down a few notes here literally a couple minutes before you hopped on, and I had starred Golden Handcuffs. Yeah. Because that's something I wanted to get into with you, right? Like, yeah. And I am far enough removed from my corporate job, and there's enough evidence in my life, and I'm sorry if this is to the listeners out there that are in a job with some golden handcuffs, but I'm willing to draw the line and just say that it's the biggest fucking scam out there. And I'll die on this hill because I've been on that side and I've been on the other side. And all of the things that people told me when I was in my previous job that were good, yeah, they're good if you're in that space. But now being on the other side, I'm like, there's no way I would go back. And admittedly, Courtney, you have a lot to do with that for me because you're the one encouraged me to give that up fully. Yeah. And everyone else is telling me to grasp and keep that safety net, that pension or that noble job with a shit salary. You were the one that literally took me by the cuff of the neck and threw me off the cliff and said, go sell something.
Well, that's a bit of a stretch. I didn't say that. I suggested that you could achieve exactly what you have achieved, and then you did achieve it. But there was nobody knew. I had great faith that it would happen, and here you are, right? But at the end of the day, everybody has to bet on themselves, and you did. You bet on yourself.
When did you start to feel an inkling of like, wait a second, I see the next 30 years of my life and I don't like it?
Oh man, it is clear as day, bro. The day was April the 20th, 2007. Okay. And I had a boss at the time who I was friends with, but who was also the kind of a personality who could be perceived as being kind of a bully. Many thought he was. And this particular day, after thinking that I had been doing great work for the past couple of years, he walked into my office and said, "Hey, Court, I'm worried that I might have to let you go. I'm getting some negative feedback from the faculties about your work." To which I naturally said, "Oh, shit, man." Well, I was crying, first of all. I was like, "Man, that's terrible. Like, who? What?" And he wouldn't tell me who, and he wouldn't tell me what. And in that moment, I thought, what kind of fucking place is this where a dude walks into your office, tells you that the entire future that you've mapped out for yourself is at risk and won't tell you what you can do about it to fix it? And there have been many other things, but it was literally in that moment where I was like, this is fucked. Like, if this is the environment that I'm to live in, for the next years while I wait for this guy to get promoted or this guy to retire, there was only like one or two paths forward for me. I thought, man, like, this is untenable. Like, I don't want to live in an environment where one day randomly somebody can threaten my entire career. And the reason why it was so easy for me to transition to commission sales, Ryan, as you know, like, there's no guaranteed paychecks. Every day we wake up broke and every day we got to make it happen. But I thought to myself, listen, surely to goodness, I can go out there and find some clients, 5, 2, 10, whatever the number is. But if one of those clients fires me, I've still got all these other jobs that are going to maybe potentially pay me. And I have all of my eggs in this one basket here with this employer. And if they wake up one day cranky at me or decide to give me some negative feedback or let me go, that's 100% of my eggs in this one basket that now somebody else has taken away from me. And I thought, you know what? I'm just never going to be so reliant on somebody else for my income. Again, I'm going to be entirely self-sufficient about this. As risky as it might seem to some people, to me, logically, it seemed less risky than the environment that I was coming from.
Yeah, because you can make it make sense where it's actually a less risky move to move towards that direction. I remember in my former career, everything was paper files. And I remember flipping through some files that I was working on. And these files would go back sometimes decades. And I would see names on these files of people that had my job before that were kind of still around the organization. They would come in for coffee, they would pop in. So I would know these people in present day, and I would see their work on file. I'm like, these people were here for 20 years, and now I see the finished product of their lives. I don't want anything else. So it was like a view into the future, and I'm like, no, that doesn't jive, right? So yeah. I think there's a lot of those things that happen in people's lives, and they don't take enough time or solitude to stop and like actually think about, is this the trajectory that I want to be on in life? And if that is, great, but
yeah. Another question that I asked myself at that time too that ties into this, and it's directly related to what you just said. You know, and admittedly this came after, but once my eyes were a little bit more open to it, I just asked myself, like, who here is as happy as I wish that I could be in my life? Like, who in my current work environment when I was there is as happy as I hope to be in my career, in my life? And I couldn't find a single person who truly looked fulfilled with the work that they were doing, you know? So that, man, like, the writing's kind of on the wall here. Like, I've got this, you know, this risk staring me in the face. Of course, I never ended up losing my job, and that's a whole story into itself. But it was like the opening of the eyes, realizing the truth, as you've said, and then just deciding to just step out. Like, this is a whole treadmill, and if you're on it, you're not in control. And I'm just going to step off this treadmill into control and create way better potential for me, my family, and my future. And that's exactly what's happened for me, and it's exactly what's happened for you.
How did you listed off some industries there that kind of piqued your interest. How did you vet those? Was it simply just meeting with people that were in those industries and you kind of picked? Because it sounds like it wasn't like, oh, you love houses so much and you're interior designer.
I kind of hate telling this story because I think it makes me sound like a bit of an asshole, but I'm going to be honest about it, okay? So here's the thing, like, this is the straight truth. Like, this is the straightest of truths. I met the financial advisors, and they all just seemed a little too buttoned up for me. I was like, man, I don't know, these guys wear a lot of suits, and they sound quite formal. That sounds a lot like where I just came from. Plus, you know, I'd already gone to grad school. I'd been in school, I think, 8-9 years by that point, and you had to go back and study, and there's a lot more to do to become a financial advisor. So that was like the first one that I crossed off my list. Mortgage brokers was the second one. They seemed a little bit more on the nerdy side. Like, they really liked the paperwork, the underwriting, the behind the scenes stuff, and I was just more of like an out front kind of person. So that was an easy one to write off. Then it came down to insurance and real estate sales. And for me, this is really like the deciding factor was like the realtors were driving the nicer cars, living in the nicer houses. And frankly, they seemed like they didn't have it together as much. Like, they just seemed like a simpler group of people. Plus, it was easiest to get a real estate license. There was way more of them out there, but I thought, holy shit, if that's my competition, I can beat them. Just give me a couple of years. And getting a real estate license takes like 3 months. And so let's go. So that was really what it came down to. I was like, whatever, like, you could have been selling apples. If it was selling apples and they were driving nice cars and living in nice houses, I would have been an apple salesperson. Instead, it was real estate. So here we are.
Similar with me, like, I'll be the first to admit, when I got into the business, I didn't know the difference between a bungalow and a two-story. I had never needed to know the difference, you know? And I remember hearing your guys' ad on the Medicine Hat radio, and I knew Justin was with you guys. I'm like, shit, I think I see his name around. Like, why don't I go for lunch with JT and see what he's up to? And that's literally the start. And I would bet that agents that are successful, their reason, I would like to basically do a map of their reasoning for getting into the business, because I don't think liking houses or like liking graphic design or interior design is a really leading metric in being successful or not. I really don't. I don't believe that to be true.
No, I think really, you know, you and I talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, and you and I have been down this path and considered lots of different things and been in different businesses together, coaching business and so forth. And I really think that what it comes down to is one's ability to defer gratification and stay gritty, you know? You know, Mel, my wife, and I were business partners, and we talk a lot and crazy. We were just talking like literally last night about this. And, you know, I don't think that I have any special gifts above anybody else, and I don't think that I'm smarter than anybody else. But I will say this, and this is a new realization. From the time that I was a kid, had this sense that I could win long term. it wasn't that I was going to win every single game, that I was going to win every single day, every single thing that I did. But I had the sense that I could win and that it was a matter of time. And so I have the tolerance for going through years and years and years of hardship because I just look at it like I'm just building a story of winning. Like, listen, man, like sometimes the seasons are longer, sometimes the games are longer, sometimes the losses hurt more, but there's always a win. You just gotta stick around to see it, and that's really what I've been doing. I'm like, I got so much tolerance to win because I see myself that way. I know it's coming and I know that there's going to be suck. And I just look at it like, hey, man, that's part of a blessing. I got to learn these lessons to earn that win. And so your earlier question about like, how's the year been? Like economically, if you were to look at our bank accounts, I'm going to say it's been one of the worst, right? If you were to say like, how's your stress been over the last 18 months? You know that it's been the highest that it's been in the last 15 years. Well, among the highest, right? But also from a growth standpoint, like this stuff is setting me up to slay the last 15 years of my hard ass working career. And so I just consider it to be a great privilege to be learning these lessons and to be on the tail end of it so that, come 15 years time, yeah, like I can look back and celebrate what's been a tremendous stretch, just like this last 15 years has been a tremendous stretch.
Yeah, I think it's unreasonable to think that it's just going to be, your revenue is going to be up and to the right your whole life, right? And I think probably, and I would love to ask you this, Courtney, like being in transaction real estate, like selling houses, I think that actually primes your mind for building other businesses because you feel the ups and downs in a calendar year of real estate because you have things that happen that aren't really in your control. And everyone that knows me, I joke about, the real estate gods, but like, it's just my mind to be like, hey, do the right work, do it consistently, do the right thing, represent clients to your best ability, always, always, always put effort forth. And in the long term, you're going to win way more than you're going to lose. And it sounds like it's a similar mindset, right?
Yeah, it really is. And I think that one of the challenges that we're faced with societally now is that there's so much access to information and there's, so much knowledge with AI and great podcasts like yours and all the value that you share with your daily and weekly videos. I mean, gosh, a person doesn't have to go too far to be able to learn a tremendous amount of information just from you alone, right? And so now I think we've become so accustomed to easy access to information and easy problems being solved and, Amazon shipping things to our door the day after we think of needing them, that we're kind of subconsciously as a society getting the same sense that success should unfold in the same way. And it really doesn't. Like the pace of success hasn't really changed dramatically in my view. You need to be willing to put in work consistently over a much longer than comfortable period of time before you begin measuring your results. And guys like me and you and gals like Mel and Sarah and everybody else in the workforce who's been successful, in my view, has been able to almost blindly put forth their best without too regularly measuring the success that comes from that, either directly or indirectly. We're just committed to the process. Bro, I love my work. Now, do I love doing it when I'm not making money? No. Do I love doing it for long periods of time when I'm paying the company? No. Nobody likes that. But the work itself is enjoyable. The influencing families' success is enjoyable. The helping realtors be successful is enjoyable. And so when I focus on doing that and how I can do that better and how I can be of greater service and of greater value, what comes from that? More success, more income, more joy. All those things come. And I think what happens for people in their entrepreneurial journeys at times is they start asking themselves like, well, I did this thing. I invested this unit of time and I don't see a return on that unit of time. Therefore, it's not working. I better pivot or I better quit. And it's like, no, man. That's a sign that you want to double down some more. And then when you're done doubling down and systematizing that, you want to double down again, go deeper, go harder, stay longer, and it'll work. But I just don't think that we're creating an environment societally where people have the ability to do that any more easily than they ever did. I think it's getting harder.
Interesting, hey? Yeah, because it's like the information's easier, but the duration to achieve is kind of the same, is what you're saying, right?
I think. And interestingly, like the landscape for being competitive is getting more challenging because there are so many more tools, right? And so your toughest competitors, no matter what space you're in, now have access to incredible resources and tools and information. So it becomes less about like collecting the information. It becomes more about synthesizing the information, implementing the information, and executing a strategy that works for you and for your business model. And I think so often now with so much information, people are just getting overwhelmed. They're now spinning their wheels in the muck of knowledge rather than being able to say, okay, do you know what? There's 5 things here that are going to be really impactful for me, and I'm just going to put my blinders on and forget about everything else. I'm going to incorporate those into my business. I'm going to perfect them, systematize them, automate them, leverage out, and look at something else. It's just so challenging, I think, a time now for everybody to be like so overwhelmed with information and just not knowing what to do. It makes the grind almost even harder, I think.
Yeah. The one kind of North Star that I've always had is like, what experience do the consumer, if I'm working with someone, what experience do they go through? And I think whether you're in real estate or a different business that you have some type of service, I think that's a great place to at least build your value prop from, because it eliminates so much of the shit, so much of the fluff, so much of the information, because it's not applicable. And Courtney, we've talked a ton about this, like, if 87% of agents don't make it to year 5, why the hell would you do something that every other agent does? Like the stats just don't support it. But whatever industry people are in or whatever they're trying to do in their life, it's like, what's your filtration process to figure out exactly what you need to do? And like you said, it's very challenging because information's so freaking easy to get right now. It's crazy.
It really is. And, I think the other challenge that we're faced with now, and this is across all industries, right, is that you have the people that are successful doing the thing. Like, let's say that you're an accountant, or, let's say that you've just started a new house cleaning business, whatever, and you're trying to figure out, ways to improve that business. It seems no matter the industry, because we're in this information age, there's always some asshole out there ready to sell you something. Right? And you and I've talked at length about this, about the number of people who are building programs or courses for $7 or $70 or $7,000, really truthfully have never really done it. And they made a pivot to an online program so that they can supplement their income or make up for something that they're not able to do over here. And so, there's a lot of information out there that's just not being delivered by capable, competent folks. And so that's a challenge, right? Who do I trust? Who do I listen to? Who do I follow? What model am I going to copy? Whose persona am I going to emulate, or whatever? And so that can become a very difficult process. And then once you've landed on it, it can be very difficult to stay focused on it. Because again, social media is intent upon us not being focused. It's intent upon us being stargazers at a universe that we're never actively participating in. And so I think for anybody who's got some sort of entrepreneurial endeavor, it's just really critical to hyper-focus on 1 or 2 or 3 people that are truly, undeniably living the life that you want to live, have built a business that you feel at least mirrors elements of your own business. Pay attention to what they're doing, ask that person questions, and see if you just can't build on some of those successes. Because, like, listen, man, if I'm getting into real estate and medicine hat, okay? Like, let's just use this as one example. There's this guy, Ryan Weary, who appears to be doing really well. He's a super nice guy. He's got a well-balanced family. His wife loves him. He's a great golfer. He's got a great kid that he spends time with, even on the golf course. I'm just going to look at that dude and be like, well, he's doing it in 2025. What's he doing? How's he doing it? Hey, Ryan, let's go out for lunch. I want to ask you some questions. I'll buy. And I'm just going to put the questions to you, and I'm just going to start copying what you're doing. Like, am I really going to try to reinvent the wheel? Like, am I going to listen to some dude from Cincinnati, right? Like, no, like you're doing it right here. Like, well, and chances are you'll tell me what I need to know. Like, here's the thing, and this is the way that great business people like Ryan are for our viewers today. Here's the thing that Ryan knows. He knows that he can give you his entire playbook. He can unpack it for you today and just be like, here's what I do, everything. Top to bottom, left to right, all of it. By the time that you begin to execute that strategy anywhere near as well as Ryan can, you're still 5 years behind him. And he's not slowing down. He's not worried that you're going to catch him and beat him. He doesn't worry about that anyways. But it's realistically not likely going to happen because he's always going to have like that 5-year run or the 3-year run or the 2 years ahead of you, whatever that is. So there's no risk to a guy like Ryan sharing with you. And that's the beauty when you start to get around really high performers that know what it's like to succeed. They realize that, hey, listen, I can give you the entire playbook. I already know that 99.9% of people aren't going to do shit with it anyways. Okay, so there's no harm in sharing it.
Very true.
For the 0.01 that actually do something with it, I still got the time horizon where I don't have to worry about you being on my heels right away. So I'll give you the roadmap. I'll answer all your questions. And here's the thing. You'll get busy spending the next 2 years executing what I can tell you in the next 3 months anyways. So why don't we just share more information? Find people like that, like Ryan or others in your industry, lean on them. They'll help you. And then it just simplifies so much. Then we can just put our social medias down and forget about Google and forget about chat, get to work building business.
It's probably, well, not probably, it is the most frustrating thing when I was a part of the coaching company is giving our clients who were paying us a lot of money, giving them the answers, and then a week later, they just didn't execute. I'm like, if you just executed 20% of what we had said to do, we would be so far along in a couple months.
Yeah.
And that execution part of it is, it sounds so obvious, but it's very rare. It's super rare. I don't know if you felt the same, Courtney, or if you continue to see that in team leaders that you're coaching, but from an agent perspective, that was the most frustrating part from my chair anyways.
Yeah, like, listen, man, I've said this to you before, and I think it's good to say here publicly. It gives me a chance to pay you a public compliment on your own podcast. But I maintain, of realistically the hundreds of agents that I've coached like one-to-one through the course of this last 15 years, you're by the widest of margins, the most coachable, action-oriented, disciplined, and gritty agent that I've met, bar none, no question. And I can think of only one person who comes close, and that person's in Ontario, and they're not on the team. They're just somebody that I coach. We have quick phone calls. They get to work executing. They call me back the next week. They've done that thing, and now it's on to the next thing. Like, it's just such a rare thing. And I think, Ryan, really what you're driving at here, I think, is that people try to overcomplicate success, I think, right? And you or I, and we'll use real estate as the example because it's the space that we're in, you or I could literally have, what, a 30-minute conversation that could lay somebody up with a plan, an actionable plan that could take them their first full year in real estate. If they would execute on that plan and watch the videos and the few things that we would give them as resources and follow that plan consistently as described, we both know with certainty that'll be one of the top performing real estate agents in any given city. But you and I also know that most people will look at that list of things, they'll sit on it, they'll Google it, they'll challenge it, they'll pick this other thing out that they like better. They won't do that either. They'll spin wheels. And it's just frustrating to see because you see so many people with potential starting businesses. You see this entrepreneurially all over. And it's why so many people, I think, struggle being self-employed, right? Because they really do need that proverbial gun to their head where there's some third party threatening them that if they don't do this thing, it's all going to go away. Well, you and I both know if you don't do this thing in your business is going to go away and you're going to get a fucking job anyway. So it's like, just do it, man. Be your own boss. And dude, I remember this when I first got started. I was like, listen, I already had a bad boss. I already had a dude that was going to walk into my office and threaten to fire me at any given time. I'm just going to pretend that dude shows up for me every day. That's it. That's all I did. I'm like, if I don't do my job today, I'm going to pretend like some dude's walking to the door going to threaten me with this gig. And so I just treated it like that was the way that it was, except the boss was me. And that's all.
It's not an unreasonable scenario that you put yourself in either, right? Because that was the alternative. That was real life for you. So
I just come from it, yeah. But there it is, man. I mean, what's the answer? I don't know. I think, I've been talking to a couple coaching clients about this. You either have to have sufficient pain to push away from, like massive pain, right? Real risk that you're pushing away from, or just real strong connection to your goals. But there are a lot of people in that middle ground that are neither connected sufficiently to their fear or drawn sufficiently to their motivation to really take massive action. For me, I was petrified of going broke. I had big bills to pay, And I didn't have any other means to pay them. I had but one plan. My plan A was real estate. And so I had to make this shit work. Yeah, and eventually over time, the goals became the major motivator and, the life that I was trying to build. But for a long time, it was pushing away from this pain. And I kept that ever present in my mind. Don't think I didn't. I wanted to remind myself of the fear and the worry and the panic of what bad things could happen if I didn't show up for myself each day. And then that motivation changed for me. Over time, it became more about, oh, listen, if I don't show up today, I'm not going to be getting closer to this big goal that I've set for myself, a goal that I know that I can attain, but not if I stack too many lazy days on top of one another. So let's get at it, right?
Mm-hmm. Need some sort of fuel source, whether it's from, not wanting to go back to your past or getting your future pulled to you. I think that's super important to have, right?
Yeah. Well, and dude, I love your story too. Like, for those that are listening, Ryan said, earlier on, we was introducing ex-colleagues or something. So the story there is, Ryan, you had what you described as being like an itch that you needed to scratch, like this just unknown feeling of what it would be like to go out there and be an independent agent slaying it. And so you just did it. Like, you didn't sit around thinking about it for 6 years. You didn't talk about it for 6 months. I'll tell you, when you told me that you weren't finding joy in the coaching anymore, I was like, I already know what's happening. This dude's leaving the team. He's going to go be independent. And I could see the writing on the wall. And it was like 2 weeks later. And I'm like, hell's yeah. Like, this is a man who doesn't mess around, who sees the writing on the wall and doesn't wait for it to be perfectly clear before he acts. He just knows that that's the right course of action. And you did that. It's a really brave and rare thing to do. And I hope that it inspires others to step into that power and bravery themselves, because look at you now, right? Like, you told me about the year that you're having and how well you've been doing and the independence that you're feeling, the time freedom that you have. That's all been a function of the foundational work that you've done, all the learning that you've done, all the discipline that you've poured into it, all the grit that you've shown up with day after day after day to become the guy deserving of the life that you're living right now. And it's easy to step into that when you've built that foundation and continue to build the person who's required to live that life. And you've done it. So kudos to you, man. It's not a common thing.
I appreciate that, Court. And I think, at least this is my experience, every time that decision has been made, it's worked out well for me. Even if something has failed, I've gained so much from that experience that there's something within me where I'm like, don't hang around, do it, because I'm batting 100% on it. Even the coaching company exiting that, I'm like, that could be perceived as a failure, but the amount of shit that we learned, I think about going and seeing Keith in Washington for that weekend, right, and spending an ungodly amount of money with him, all for it to be like, wait a second, that's not the avatar we're after. What are we doing? But I use what he taught us still to this day every single time on my videos. Like, it was so fun, and I learned so much about business, and the amount of money we were burning was kind of laughable. And the fact that we were able to do that without it compromising one iota of our lifestyle, I think is a true blessing. And it was just another thing where I'm like, hey, I tried something, I had a good time at it. So why not try the next thing? Usually the worst case scenario, no one's going to die. And more times than not, it's going to work out, right?
Dude, that's such a great example. And we can both agree that it was a lot of money and it sucked burning it. And friends, we don't want to tell you how much it was, but there's nobody that doesn't think that this was a lot of money. Let's just say that. There's nobody that you'll give this number to that's like, holy shit, that's a big number. And we all kind of walked away with that attitude. Too bad it didn't work out. Too bad we made $0 with that big investment, but also the wisdom, the knowledge, the things to not do, right? Mm-hmm. The things to not replicate. That's just as powerful, man. Those are all just as important.
That's crazy. Good times.
Yeah,
I want to shift gears a little bit. Talk to me about whether it's 1 or 2 year kind of period in your life where you're doing transactions, you're a high producing agent, and for the listeners out there, this would be like running your own business and you're basically maxed out and you want to leverage to the next level. Because there's a lot of, quote, real estate teams out there, but in Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, no other team leader is out of production, meaning Courtney does not sell a house. He's leveraged out of production. 99.9% of the times, big teams out there, their team leader is still the lion's share of production. I want that to be very clear. Courtney's accomplished getting out of production fully, and he operates a team. Talk to me about the shift that you had to make, whether it was physical, mental, emotional, or all of them, to step into that space with the fear of like, oh my God, like if I give up the lion's share of revenue, what does that look like?
Man, there's so many ways to answer that. So let me start with the piece that connects back to how we started this conversation about being from Chipman and living your life according to the directives of those around you, or at least the social pressures of those around you. I can very specifically remember when I was scaling the team, hearing feedback from other agents that we were competing with, say on a listing or something, saying things like, well, he's not fully focused. He's a team leader, but he's also selling, and he's not going to be as good for you as somebody else. And I don't want to say that those thoughts didn't get in my head, and I don't want to say that I didn't have some limiting beliefs around that. And the way that I overcame that fear, right, which was a motivator at that time, was just to add hours. I don't want to pretend for a second that was a particularly balanced time of my life. I mean, if I was awake, I was working. That's just a fact. And I did that for the better part of a decade, certainly for the first 5 years, and, in large part for the next 5 as well. So it was the judgment of my colleagues that was a motivator. It was like this, I had something to prove that it was possible, because nobody around here clearly felt that it was. And your next question comes down to the transition. Like, how do you make the transition where, like most team leaders do like 80% of the revenue for their company, and then their team produces the remaining 20%. And so then how do you replace that income? And so, I've got a background in finance, and this isn't super complicated math. And so I just looked at how many people I would need on the team to manage the amount of business that I was generating. And I calculated how much I would need to give away if I was to pass a lead or a deal to that person, and how much the company would need to make, how much more business I would need to generate to cover that off. And then I consistently bounced myself off that rev limiter of capacity, if that makes sense, where I would level up the amount of business or leads being generated to the point where I would nearly break, and then I would bring another person in to manage that business, and I'd ratchet back down and then level back up and bring another person in. And so, yeah, it was a very difficult time. But the way that I structured it with the compensation model, the value proposition to team members, was that there was a fair exchange for compensation and for value. And what I got back in return was time. Now, I would say for the first 2 or 3 years, Ryan, there was no increase in my net income. There was a redlining effect of my life, and there was a redlining effect of my stress, for sure. And I not so affectionately call that period of time Death Valley. So for us as a team, it was around 150 to 250 transactions a year, where I'm still required to be in production. I'm desperately trying to get out of it. And I had to make a choice. Like I got to the point where I'm like, listen, I'm either going to have to scale back and just do a certain amount of business myself with some admins and keep it simple and always be at people's kitchen tables, or become the kind of leader deserving of a full-time exit. The person who can sufficiently support enough people in the growth of their businesses and serving their clients, our clients, that I can deserve to be fully out of production, and that they'll be happy with the value exchange in return for the compensation. And as you know, I mean, you've been a team leader. That's a very difficult balance, and there's no perfect answer. But as long as you can beat the average a little bit over time, you're going to have a successful business model. And I think that's all I've done. I've just continued to show up. I've continued to refuse to quit. I've continued to try to improve the systems and the processes and the people and me, my leadership, my communication, and all those things. And over time, like you wind up with a business that you can be proud of, that requires less and less of you. But for anybody out there thinking that this is like a short-term thing, like it's not. Like, I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years, and it's, there have been periods of time, as you know, Ryan, where I've taken my foot off the gas, maybe a little bit too much, but it's not been super, super long. And I just think anybody can do it. It's just you gotta stay with it, and you gotta do the right things and know where to put your energy. And those are challenging things.
Yeah, and talk about that Death Valley kind of period of time, because I'd imagine if you were just doing transactions yourself, net profit probably would have been easier if you just were solo, right?
way easier.
And your headaches would have been 1/10 of what they were, right? I mean, there's
Different.
there's the whole business philosophy of the dip, right? And sounds like that's what it was for you. Now, as you stepped into this new leadership role or being, if you want to call it that, how much did your physical and mental health have a role in that? Because I've seen some pictures of you, Courtney, from 10 plus years ago, and I didn't even know it was you, to be honest. But talk just mostly about fitness, that role in your life, how it's helped you step into your superpowers.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you know this, so this isn't a conversation for us. This is a service piece for our listeners. And Ryan knows the story. If you go back, I don't know, 8-10 years, whatever it was, I was really in a bad spot, like very difficult financial situation. Had to borrow 10 grand from my mother-in-law at a time where I was on the radio like 15 times a day across different stations. I mean, it was ridiculous. And the thing that I learned at that time, Ryan, was first and foremost that I was going to die at the pace that I was working, just with the attitude and the mindset. Like, and not today, but I was going to die young. For sure it was going to kill me at an early stage. And I thought, man, at very least, like, it'd be good just to live longer and to not feel so shitty. That's really what it came down to. And it was around the time that I started thinking about my alcohol consumption. Not so much about food, but certainly alcohol and exercise were the two big things. And I thought, okay, listen, these are some easy levers to pull. I can be more physically active, and they say that people that are physically active have more energy to do things, and that also their energy when they're doing things is more positive, more optimistic, and more attractive. And I'm like, okay, well, I could use some of that because it seems pretty shitty what I'm experiencing now. And the whole idea of living longer didn't seem like a bad idea either, because it felt like a panic attack or a heart attack most days then. And so, yeah, man, I got serious about my mornings. I thought, listen, it's the one time of day that I can control. Very low odds of somebody grenading my morning at 5 a.m. You know what I mean? Like, you can count on it at 10, but 5 a.m., low odds of somebody grenading your day. And I thought, man, if I could just get more time then to prime my mind, to prime my body, to get all the shitty thoughts out of the way and all the good thoughts in, then I could walk into my day at like 7:30 with a great attitude and better able to influence people to be of greater influence themselves. And that's really what being a great team leader is like. As you know, it's like not different than being a great dad or being a great realtor. We have to have positive, inspiring energy to motivate and inspire people to take action, to feel safe, to do things, whatever those things are that they want. In my case, it's supporting and inspiring agents to do hard work that they may not feel naturally comfortable doing, right? Or it could be a coaching client, or it could be anyone. And what I realized and what I started to unlock with this, because I was doing a lot more reading, that was another big thing, I would just start talking about the books that I was reading. And I would just start talking about, like, a workout or some stupid thing that I did that was hard. And dude, I could see people looking at me differently. I really could. And that gave me confidence. And that was like a totally unexpected, unintended outcome of that whole experience. See, I was doing it to live longer so that I could make more money. And what ended up happening was I ended up gaining confidence. And that was really one of the things that inspired me most. I was like, holy shit, like, people like talking about these books. They like hearing these stories. Seems like I'm a source of information and education for people. And wow, people are also talking about it being inspiring. And I'm like, I just went to the gym so I wouldn't die, right? But really, and then you start to feel this sense of self-confidence, and you start to see the difference that can make. These conversations can make, the ones like we're having right now in people's lives. You think, man, now it's almost like I don't just have a duty to do this for me, right? I don't just have a duty to do this for me. I have a duty to do this for my coaching clients, for my kids, my family, for you, for the folks watching this podcast, for the team, for everybody. Like, I have to show up a certain way with certain energy to be the person that people need me to be so that they can have success. And in return, yes, that affords me a degree of success and satisfaction and accomplishment and confidence, all of which allow us to all continue to win and to continue to move forward and repeat, right? So it's so much easier when you start to see the benefit of that stuff manifesting in all those different ways, for sure.
Was alcohol the biggest domino in your journey? It certainly has been for me. It's like literally like I'm trying all these different keys to unlock this thing when really all I had to do was pick up this one and it worked the whole time. And I'm like, why the shit didn't I do that before?
I know, man, and it's the truth, bro. Like we've talked about this, and I don't think it's ever not going to be true for me, man. Like I'd love to say working out, like yeah, I've been going to the gym off and on since I was 13 or 14 or whatever. So, but still, man, getting the discipline to do it as regularly as I have over the last, say, 10 years, that's different. That was way harder, man. It was a way bigger lever to pull, right? Because that's doing something, right? Or the water consumption. Like I drink 3 to 4 liters a day. Like that's doing something. Some days I'm like chugging and choking and, aggravated at all the water I got to drink. Or the food, I'm like, oh man, I really want a chocolate bar or, McDonald's or whatever. And so like with alcohol, bro, it's just like, it's just something I don't do. I just don't drink. Right? And the outflow from that, you're absolutely right. Listen, for our listeners, man, I'm just going to encourage you to do this. Follow this math with me for a second and do this on your own because it is absolutely staggering. I took a piece of paper one day and I just went I kind of like chunked my years together, Ryan. So like my heavy drinking years, would have been, say, 17 to, I don't know, call it 27, right? And then there was another phase of drinking, kind of like 27 to probably 39, somewhere in that range. And then there's been like from 39 to 49, been a lot less. And I looked in those, let's say, 3 categories of years, and I just said, hey, on average, how many days a month would I drink heavy? And for me, drink heavy means like has a notable hangover. Forget the rest of the times. Just like consider the times that you had a notable hangover. How many times a month? Figure that out on a year. Now, this is where it gets ugly. I'm going to write off the drinking time of that day. So let's call it half a day, right? The next day, if it's a Sunday, for me, that day is 100% written off. You might say 90%.
Yeah.
And I would look at the Monday. Monday, at best, I'd be at 60%, probably more like 40. Tuesday, maybe I'm at 60, 70%. I wouldn't be 100 until Thursday. So go ahead and just write that down. How many days you lose in a month, in a year by those time segments. For me, in my lifetime, it worked out to something like I gave away 6 years to alcohol. Now, that might not have meant much to 27-year-old Courtney or 37-year-old Courtney, but I can tell you this, man. 49-year-old Courtney, the idea that I've given away 6 years of my life to alcohol consumption and the negative effects that it has on my body, my mindset, my energy, and my output, bro, just hit the brakes on the alcohol lever and say no. Like, I'm good, man. I need every minute I can get. I'm 49 years old. I'm not going to be around forever. Like, I'm acutely aware of my time horizon now, man. I'm not prepared to sacrifice any more days.
Man, that is the biggest eye-opener that I've had is the time. From not drinking, it's been whatever, I don't even know, 8 months or something like that. Yeah. But the time in my day where I'm functioning at 8.5 or higher is literally double. Yeah. And so it's like this whole world opens up to where I'm not in a mode for 2.5 hours just kind of recovering from a mundane hangover, or yeah, you have those couple days a month where you're an absolute piece of shit laying around. And having a son, as you know, Court, being a dad, like those kids, they don't have an off button, right? Like you got to be on. And so I'm so grateful. I mean, you've encouraged me with my alcohol consumption to reduce it for years, and I'm so grateful that, and for anyone out there that has that crutch, to be in a community that is encouraging you to give that up, because that could be the thing, the key that opens your future that you're not even aware of. Like, I didn't even know all the possibilities, all the time that I was wasting until you get on the other side of that. Because you shared that with me before, Courtney, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, yeah, Courtney's exaggerating this. Like, it's not that much time. But now that I'm on the other side, I'm like, holy shit. It's wild. Dude. It's wild.
The other thing, man, because but for what it's worth, man, like we pretty well stopped around the same time. Like when I had kids, I'm a little bit older than you, so around that same time. But dude, wait till wait for 10 years. Okay, here's what you want to watch out for, man, because I just had this experience. Let me think about this. There was a concert at the NMAX Center not that long ago. Who was it? Doesn't matter. Anyway, I saw an old drinking buddy of mine that I used to party with nearly every weekend, when I got into real estate. And, I'm there. It's like a Tuesday night. I'm sober. Like I'm not even having a beer. No offense to anybody who wants a beer at a concert. It's just like I didn't want one. It was Tuesday night. I wasn't gonna have a beer. I went to the concert, went home. My buddy's drunk. He's 49. I know he's got to go to work the next day, and he's fat, and his hair's long, and he just looks like a dude that's been drinking too much for the last 10 years. He's unhealthy, and I'm like, man, like I just don't want that, bro. Like I want to be a healthy looking, happy dude. And listen, I got enough challenges, man. I got enough shit to worry about. I don't need to add a hangover on top of that. Like, listen, it induces so much anxiety into me. Mm-hmm. Like, I can't even imagine dealing with the stress of the things that we deal with, you and me, with family and work, to now try to manage that on a foundation of anxiety and hangovers. Like, I'm just like, no, thank you. I'm just going to do it normally with my normal coping skills, which are average at best. I just don't want to put myself at a disadvantage. That's all.
Man, well, I appreciate you being vulnerable with that stuff, Court, because I know that's not the answers that most people want to hear. But you know what's funny is I have more people DM me privately about living alcohol free than I do about real estate, and it's triple, it's quadruple the amount. Mm-hmm. Of people reaching out. So it is important, and that's why I continue to at least mention it, right?
And let's be clear, like, first of all, I'm not the kind of person that's going to be an alcoholic. I'm not the kind of person that ever did mean things or blacked out drunk and was an asshole and started fights. Like, I was probably one of the most fun people that you could party with and drink with. Like, I'm very good at drinking alcohol. Still, I'm way better without it. Do I miss it? Yeah, man. Like, things are so much fun when you're partying in Vegas and drinking booze and blah, blah, blah. But man, it's just the hangovers, bro. Like, if it was just not for the hangovers, guy could do it, but I just am not prepared to. Plus, the other thing you got to know, as you age, it crushes your testosterone levels, to say nothing about spiking your estrogen. And it just does all the wrong things physiologically. Like, it's just aging you faster, creating way more free radicals, higher risk of cancer, obesity, diabetes. I mean, you name it, the shit's going to kill you. And I'm just like, yeah, man, I'm going to draw a line. I got an offer on button for that, and it's mostly off. Admittedly, I'll have like an old fashioned if I go out somewhere to a fancy restaurant. That's kind of my, one treat, maybe once every 3 months or something.
Yeah, good for you, man. That's cool. I have a couple, I would say, lingering questions that I want to get to that didn't really fit in our conversation.
Yeah.
How has being a father changed your outlook on life and your business journey?
Man, in ways that I couldn't have imagined to start with. I think for me, I didn't want kids for 37 years, 38 years. But when I got with Mel and we started getting serious and started getting a little bit older, that conversation changed for both of us. She didn't want kids in her first marriage either. And so admittedly, with that type of mindset, when I had kids, I really just thought that it would be all the same, but with a kid or two by my side. And as you know, that couldn't be further from the truth. It's just, it takes energy that you didn't know it takes. It takes time that you didn't know that it would take. It takes scheduling that you couldn't have imagined would be as complex as it is. There's now all of a sudden these expectations from your partner about where you be and what you do. And then there's the resentment that goes along with the changing of your habits and patterns and the expectations around that. I mean, everything changes. And I think, Ryan, one of the things that I did right that I'm proud of was I just trusted my wife, honestly. And it's kind of funny how I came to this trust, and maybe when she sees this, she'll get ugly at me, but I'll just say it the way that it is. I remember some crazy things coming out of her mouth. And I don't mean crazy like in the way that people categorically call women crazy. That's not what I'm talking about. I just like unusual things, like, pre-baby, baby, post-baby. Like, it's just, and I remember thinking, hey, listen, here's the thing, Courtney. That woman grew a baby in her body for the last 9 months. And let's be honest, the second thing, ain't nobody around here really needs you. You're just meat, okay? So the best thing you can do is say yes to everything that anybody ever asks for. Look around for ways that you can be helpful. And when somebody tells you to do something, you say yes. And you're going to commit to doing that for at least the next 3 to 4 years. Do not pass go. do not collect your $200. You work for that woman and that kid. And I just resigned myself to it. I really did. It made life so much easier because when she said to me, hey, listen, like I need you around to help put the kids down. You know, we were 2 years in and now had 2 kids under 2 in the house. Who does that at age 40, right? She's like, look, I need you home for supper to help feed the kids and to get them down. So now instead of working every evening like I was, I had to be home from 5 to 7:30. And I would go out and work after that. I started doing that 2 nights a week, and then it was 3 nights a week. And then she needed me there 4 or 5 nights a week. And then it was Sundays off, and then it was Saturdays off. And listen, man, like if Mel didn't pressure me, if she didn't set an expectation that I could be the dad and the business person who could compartmentalize time and dedicate that much to my kids, I would have never tried. I really wouldn't have. I'd still be the guy that just works 100 hours a week. But she wouldn't stand for that. She put her foot down and said, no, listen, like you said you're going to be a dad. You said you're going to be around. Here's when I need you around. Here's when you're going to need to be around. Let's talk about a plan for making that happen. You think about it. Let me know what you think, and I'll let you know what I think, and then we'll build that. And be like, all right, girl, let's do this. And so we did. As a team, we built the plan, and I fully submitted to it, if you want to say that. Doesn't matter. Yeah. But the beauty of it, bro, is this, is that I learned to be so much more efficient with time in a way that I never could have without that pressure. Like I can do so much more in an hour now than I ever could then because I'm forced to. I don't want to fuck around wasting time doing something that's going to take me 3 hours if I can do it in 30 minutes and go take a nap, go for a drive, or do something fun. Like, and it's not to say that I've converted all that time into effort. It's that I've turned it into a much better lifestyle. And I'm just really proud that I picked the right person, that she wanted to have kids with me, and that she didn't stand for, second best from me. She's like, no, this is what you're going to do. This is what I need. This is what I know that you're capable of doing. So let's get down to making that shit happen right away. So I'm pretty thankful for that.
Yeah. I had this similar experience, and it was, I don't know what the right word is, but just like a realization that what I was doing, time in doesn't equal results out. Because all of a sudden my time got compressed so much and I was getting the same result because I just basically cut out all the shit that was not profitable, but would move the needle, if that makes sense. I met with an agent in town a couple weeks ago and she was explaining all the things she does. She's like, do you do this? I'm like, nope. She's like, what do you do before a showing? I'm like, I just show up. Again, circling back, it's what does the consumer want? What do they need? What journey do they need to be taken on? And I think one of the biggest things having a kid is like, you have all this built-in responsibility now, and you still have to make your older life work together, right?
Yeah. And then I think the other thing that's worth noting too is that in that transitionary period, like I don't want to make it sound like that was like as easy as I made it sound. Like there was a lot of battling, right? Yeah. There was a lot of like, well, you don't understand how valuable my time is, and you don't understand what it means when somebody calls me, and you don't understand, and you don't get it, and you don't appreciate, and all this stuff. And then her stance is like, yeah, but there's fucking kids over here that need you. You're their dad. And so, like we had those arguments and we had them consistently for years. But at the end of that, we're better parents. We're better business owners. We're more efficient people. We have more patience for other people that are going through things. I mean, I just think kids made me a much better person personally. A lot more flexible, a lot more understanding, certainly more wise, more efficient. Like, I can't think of a way that I'm worse off by having kids, honestly. I'm healthier because I have kids. Honestly, like, I started when I was 40. I want to continually be in great shape so that I can last, man. I want to see my grandkids, and I started late, so that's saying something.
Yeah. Shifting gears to my next question, and I need to share a bit of a story for you to answer it, but one thing that I've noticed over many years of working with you, Court, and sometimes when we get on a call where I'm asking for some help, all I want to hear Courtney say is, man, the market's just slow, don't worry about it. Oh yeah, the market. You never do. You never blame the fucking market. You're like immune to market fluctuations. And that's something where sometimes when I'm beat down in the winter and it's slow, I just want Courtney to say like, oh man, it's okay. It's just the market. You've never said that. You've never said it on one coaching call. Nothing. Where does that confidence come from? Being in a industry that's market driven, meaning it's not like a set number of inventory or set anything. It's fluid. Because I know a lot of listeners are out there work either in oil and gas? Like every industry is somewhat fluid. Where does that confidence come from?
I constructed it. I really did. I can't tell you exactly, but I think it was within the first 3 years. I remember, Mel would probably say maybe it was 5 or longer, but I remember freaking out. I remember feeling like every year was my last year. I remember thinking like,
Yep.
this is not replicatable. This is unique. That was a lucky win, a year or a month or a deal or whatever.
The run's coming to an end.
Yeah, exactly. Every time, right? And I thought, okay, well, first of all, like at some point, like if you're still at it, you have to acknowledge that like maybe that's not true. The second thing that came to me was that if I have this philosophy in my mind that I am a winner and that I can win, then I just have to better understand the pathway for that. So let's just build the story where that happens, right? And dude, it's real simple. I just thought about it a lot, and I started thinking about the way that markets work, the way that human psychology is, and what it means to be a great real estate agent. And I started looking at the trends in real estate, the number of properties being bought and sold. I started looking at the number of agents that we were competing against for that business. And I started looking at the energy that those existing agents were exuding in the marketplace. And the thing that I consistently found and settled on was that in years where there were fewer transactions being had, let's say, for example, there have been years where transactions weren't quite half of what they were in best years, but, say 3/4. There wouldn't be 3/4 as many agents. But the thing that I settled on, Ryan, is that more than 3/4 of the agents had shit attitudes, were staying at home, were fearful, were scared, were worried, didn't have the scripts, didn't have the knowledge, didn't have the motivation, the inspiration, the ability to influence buyers and sellers to want to work with them. And so I convinced myself, and I am still to this day convinced that what most agents would consider to be a down market are actually the best opportunities for a person, so long as they protect their mindset, they protect their energy, and they continue to be an influencer in that marketplace. And if you can do that, you can take market share dramatically easier in a down market than you can in one where everybody's happy and thinks it's the greatest time ever. Because, hey man, like everybody's happy in a seller's market, but it's in a balance in a buyer's market where agents are also freaking out. And if you can be that anomalous agent that comes with solutions, comes with a great attitude, and is able to influence and inspire people to take action, to feel safe enough to take action, then you'll have an unlimited amount of business, just like you have now, right? Mm-hmm. So that's really why. To me, it's perfectly logical.
Yeah. Well, that goes into my last question for you. We've talked a lot about in the past about how when people are scared, they stop. When there's fear in the world, people will not get into action. How have you fought off fear in your life to continue to grow and continue to be inspired?
Man, like that's such a simple question that I would say hard to answer. And I want to start, Ryan, by saying that like I haven't mastered it. Like if our viewers were to have joined me for parts of the last 18 months of my life behind the scenes, they would point and say like that's evidence, and those are the habits of a scared dude. So I don't want anybody to think that like I'm immune to it. Okay, like it's constant work. All right, it's not something that I was born with. It's not something that comes easy to me. What works for me, and these are just strategies and habits that I've stolen from other far more successful people that have proven that it's effective, is consistently getting up at the same time, consistently doing cardiovascular exercise because it releases endorphins in me that fake my brain into feeling good even if I would normally feel shitty. So I know if I wake up on the wrong side of the bed, which I often do, if I can just get my ass to do 20 minutes of cardio, my outlook on the entire universe is going to be better. And so I'll just do that. Not because I fucking love cardio or getting up early, but because I don't want to be a piece of shit for a bunch of people today. And then if I can lift a little bit of weights, again, same kind of thing. Get those endorphins flowing. And for a person like me, it's got ADHD, all kinds of evidence around that. On top of that, man, staying hydrated. Most of our folks in the world today are dehydrated. We don't realize how much fatigue comes from dehydration. We don't realize how much we overeat when we're dehydrated. And so now we're getting fat, we're getting more lazy just because we haven't drank enough water. It's like easy enough levers to pull. On top of that, I had to develop a practice where I literally began to rewire my brain by thinking about more positive things. And it started with gratitude, just like, I'm grateful for this light. I'm grateful for waking up today. I'm grateful that I got heat in my house, hot water in my hot water tank, a faucet that turns on when I turn it. And when I go outside, I don't have to worry about getting shot. Like little things. And strategically over time, what was happening for me when I did that was I would just start to feel better. And I would start to see more opportunities in my days. And I was better able to capitalize on them, not just because I was seeing them, but because I had better energy to do something about it. Not just physical kilojoules of energy to identify something and act on it, but I mean like energy just to want to do something good in the world. And to me, those very simple habits have stayed with me. And I would say like, between alcohol and those couple things that I just described for you, I think like I could attribute like a really big chunk of whatever success I've had to those things. And then, the rest of it, the 30% or whatever to like 1,000 other things. But like
Sure.
big time, it's those.
Man, so on the 1st, it was my birthday, and I'm like, I'm going to post, because I'm 33 this year, I'm going to post 33 things I'm grateful for on my story. Mm-hmm. And I would encourage everyone to do that one time, whether it's 10 or 15, and you don't have to post it, but like just write it down. It's fucking impossible to have a bad day. When you gotta like seek out 33 things to be grateful for. Yeah. Like middle of the day, a seller fired me, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm actually grateful for this. I don't want to deal with these. And like, it is incredible when you're looking for good things, how good things happen to you. And it's just, it's so true. And that might sound a little fluffy to some people that have never done it, but man, it's a game changer.
Dude, I'd like to dovetail one little thing with that I think is another kind of philosophical piece that's helpful. At some certain point, I learned to park my judgment around things. Like you gave this example of getting fired in the middle of the day, and there was many years where that would have like broken my heart, and I'd be, reflecting on it, thinking about it, and stewing about it, and not being able to sleep because of it. And the place that I finally got to, I was like, listen, like there's a continuum of things that are always going to happen no matter what. Now, certainly we would like to mitigate the number of times we get fired, and if that's a habitual thing, I got to look at that. But it's going to happen. And so if it happens today, that just means that it's less likely to happen tomorrow, or the next day, or the day after that. We just got it out of the way. So I'm like grateful that I got this thing out of the way because it's inevitably going to happen at some point. So let's just do it now, man. Get the bad news out of the way and we get on to the good shit. Like that's the way that I've started to look at things. And now nothing's bad. Blessing, blessing, blessing. Awesome. 2 years of, hardship. Awesome. Like really grateful for that. Look where it's going to take us now. And if we can adopt that thinking, like no bad days, man, I can tell you, like I've had such good days these past couple of years because of that philosophy. And I feel so much more empowered because of it, so much more optimistic and so much more stoked about the future. And I really wish that I learned those skills so many years ago. And dude, I'll say this one thing. One of the crazy things about having kids is like watching an 8-year-old get these like philosophies, like literally get them, things that I didn't learn until I was 38, 48. It's crazy.
That's cool. That's got to feel good too, right?
It does, man. You get really hopeful for your kids not having to carry some of the baggage that you have. Right?
Well, Court, I appreciate your time. We've went quite long here, but hopefully the listener pulled some nuggets there. I think there's a ton of value there, and I appreciate your friendship, man. I appreciate you being a mentor for me. Anytime
Dude, you're one of my favorite people that I've ever met, bro. I got all the time for you and anybody that's in your life, man. Whatever, man. It's just always good to hang out with you. I always feel better after I talk to Ryan Weary. That's a fact.
Thanks, man. Take care.
Bro.
We'll talk
later.
later.
You too, man.